Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, magandang araw, a good day to everyone. Welcome once again to the Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. We are now in our fourth session, and I am happy to let you know that this workshop is also part of the month-long celebration of Baliuag University's 97th founding anniversary with the theme, Katatagan ngayon, Bigtis ng kinabukasan. In English, Resilient Today, Stronger Tomorrow. I am Alvin Alma Jose, Dean of the College of Education and Human Development and Principal of the Basic Education Department of Baliuag University, Philippines, your moderator for today. Today's session is part 4 of this webinar series, which runs every third Friday of the month from November 2021 to April 2022 and is brought to us by Baliuag University in cooperation with the University College of Estate Management, Global Sustainable Futures Network, the OPED-LUCA Project, and Maastricht University. To recap, we have already gained new knowledge on sustainability, systems thinking, problem analysis, and meaning and impact of the SDGs on our first 3 sessions. For our fourth session, our theme is Sustainability Leadership. May I just remind everyone of our webinar guidelines? Number 1, kindly use your complete name as your Zoom account name. Please keep yourself on mute. And if you have a question, you may type it in the chat room and share your ideas. Furthermore, here are some reminders about your participation in this webinar series. Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series is comprised of 6 online events or short workshop events. The 6 online events take place every third Friday of every month from November 2021 to April 2022. At the end of 6 online events, each participant will receive a certificate of participation in Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. Finally, evaluation of the activity will be done before ending the program. Once again, welcome to our participants from all over the globe. Our attendees today come from different sectors: universities, government, companies, mining, and the army. To our participants from Baku, Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, Botswana, Brazil, Burkina Faso, West Africa, Cameroon, Germany, Ghana, India, Kenya, Malaysia, Montenegro, Nigeria, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, Uganda, United Kingdom, United States, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and of course the Philippines. Your virtual presence is highly appreciated. At this moment, to formally welcome us all to this virtual engagement, let us have the President of the Baliuag University, Dr. Patricia Bustos-Lagunda. Dr. Pat? Okay. Okay, Dr. Pat, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Dr. Pat, go ahead po.
I was trying to use my microphone, but nonetheless. So I was saying, hello, Philippines, hello, world. Pleasant day to all of you. And to those who have been with us for the past 3 seminars, welcome back. And to those who are joining us for the first time, welcome. And we hope to have you till the last seminar. We are here in Baliuag University, are very glad to share the platform for this seminar series. That's why I'd like to extend my warm virtual welcome in behalf of the university administration. This serves as our way of joining the advocacy in shaping for sustainable futures together. We are now in the fourth session, as earlier mentioned, and which we started last November 2021. I'm delighted to inform our participants that today's session coincides with the 97th, again mentioned earlier, this is our 97th founding anniversary. And our theme is Katatagan Ngayon, Bigkis ng Kinabukasan. Resilient today, stronger tomorrow. And we have an array of events for this month-long celebration. And this is one of the highlights. To those who have just joined this session, this online series is a brilliant idea of Baliuag University's cooperation with the University College of Estate Management, Global Sustainable Futures Network, the Open Duca Project, and Maastricht University, the Netherlands. The previous sessions have provided us with comprehensive inputs and introduced us to the concept of sustainability, systems thinking, and problem analysis, and the meaning and impact of the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we shall have another relevant topic on sustainability, which is sustainability leadership. Our delivery team, of course, we have with us Dr. Renuka Thakore, Dr. Jos Eussen, and Mr. Khoo, Hock. They are Baliuag University's visiting fellows for global sustainability, and they're here to provide all of us with action-based perspectives for today's topic on sustainability leadership. As we all know, the realization of the SDGs needs leaders who, according to UNESCO, should possess extra dimensions of listening, healing, awareness, persuasion, stewardship, and personal growth. Sustainability leadership reminds us that leadership is not a position. And having said this, we have to work together to build a shared vision of change for collective success. The pillars of sustainability, that includes human, social, economic, and environmental, are deliberate efforts of action in order to meet our present needs without compromising the ability of the next and future generations in meeting their needs. With this, I enjoin everyone to participate in the remaining 2 webinars this coming March and April, the 3rd Friday, and learn sustainable practices in order to promote balance between the environment, economy, and equity. In closing, I wish all of us a productive and meaningful webinar on sustainability leadership. And together, let's have a sustainable future. Thank you very much and stay safe, everyone. Back to you, Dr. Alvin.
Thank you, Dr. Lagunda, for those inspiring words. Indeed, we are excited to discover and learn more about sustainable development in this webinar series. At this juncture, let me give the virtual floor to Dr. Francia R. Santos, Country Coordinator of Global Sustainable Futures, to introduce the BU Visiting Fellows for Global Sustainability, members of the delivery team. Dr. Franz?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants from GSFN and Baliuag University organizing team. So once again, it is with great pleasure and honor to have this task of presenting to you the delivery team of the 4th session of the Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. So most probably, you know them already very well, especially if you have attended the first 3 sessions. Our first speaker is Professor Dr. Jos Eussen. He presently lectures sustainable development at Maastricht University, as well as culture and global citizenship at the University College Venlo in the Netherlands. His mission is to contribute to the construction and development of a local to global learning space through which the next generation can build a future worthy of our planet and joint well-being. So please welcome Dr. Jos Eussen. Our second speaker is Mr. Khoo Hock, who has been Vice Chair of the Geneva-based Roundtable on sustainable biofuels and biomaterials, and a member of the Committee on International Social and Environmental Alliance. He advises on sustainability strategies and implementation for companies embarking on their sustainability journey. So once again, let's all welcome Mr. Khoo Hock. The last speaker is indeed a global influencer. Dr. Renuka Thakore is the founder of the Global Sustainable Futures Network with more than 1,000 coordinators from more than 100 countries around the globe, and the number is still increasing. So without further ado, let us all welcome the BU visiting Fellows for Global Sustainability from the Multidisciplinary Alliance of Scholars and Practitioners. Professor Jos Eussen from Maastricht University and founder of Opeduca Project from Netherlands. Mr. Khoo Hock, convener for Global Sustainability Summits and Dialogues, Global and ASEAN Green Chamber of Commerce from Malaysia. And Dr. Renuka Thakore from the University College Estate of Management, UK, and the founder of the Global Sustainable Futures Network. We're so grateful for their generosity in sharing with us their expertise on how to shape sustainable futures together. So let's all enjoy this opportunity for knowledge exchange with our BU or Baliuag University Visiting Fellows for Global Sustainability. Happy learning, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Francia. With this, let us listen to our visiting fellows as they discuss sustainability leadership. I am now giving the virtual floor to the members of the delivery team. They will entertain your questions during the open forum of our program.
Then I will kick off. Hello to all. Thank you very much for having me today. And my warmest congratulations to start with to Baliuag University in these special celebrative times. It's a pleasure and honor to share some thoughts about sustainable development and specifically about leadership that we perhaps need or perhaps don't need. That will be up to you. I will not lecture you on leadership as a per definition given fact, but hope to raise some thoughts and consideration regarding leadership for sustainable development. What could it be and what might we need and what road might we take? That will be up to all of us. Sharing these thoughts, they come from Maastricht.
Can I stop you? Your slides are very zoomed, so we cannot see the full slide.
That and then I give the floor back to technology because I just shared the slides. I did no more than that.
Now we can see a bit of not really good.
Okay, we didn't have that problem previous time, so I think that it's a Zoom technology matter then.
It is just zoomed. Your slides are zoomed.
Dr. Jos, you can try again,
Yes.
but Dr. Renuka, in our view, I think in our end, the presentation of Dr. Jos is okay. You can try again, sir.
Maybe it is
Yes.
my Zoom, then I will have a look.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Renuka.
Okay. Then I'll briefly pick up welcoming you from Maastricht, from the old western heart of Europe. We have green lands and a lot of sustainability challenges. Maastricht is a small city with quite some leaders in the university life. And perhaps that's not where leadership for sustainable development will come from. I will highlight that. We will briefly discuss if we need leadership in the first place, then go through notions and general understanding of leadership to better comprehend ways to lead, options to lead, and observe what challenges specifically sustainable development brings with it when we consider leadership. I will resume with proposing a kind of leadership for ESD, which is no law, no given fact. It will be, as I said before, up to you to decide and to elaborate on that. And I hope we can end my contribution today with a debate, with a critical reflection on leadership, what we all expect of it, and if we already can observe it, and how we might together create it further. So why would we need leadership to begin with? To put it in very straightforward lines, we are becoming many, many people on this planet. And it will be a planet that is getting smaller instead of bigger due to climate change. So the coming decades, we will find each other even more close. We expect national borders to disappear. And we expect people in general to huddle together a bit more, because many of our lands won't be as inhabitable as they are today. So we are more people and we are getting together. And together we will have to decide what to do with the scarce resources we have and the resources we need. So on what to use, what to consume, and thereto what to produce. So if we like it or not, and I like it very much as such, to be together, it will be a magnificent challenge. We will see that togetherness will be forced and forged. Today's tensions we still allow ourselves will someday have to disappear. So this route, ladies and gentlemen, at the least requires some coordination and some leadership. How do we get there? And in general, we might expect leadership to lead change and share vision and get us all together. But let us critically reflect and consider, do we have that leadership today? Is it out there already? And when considering that, allow me to say that, especially around leadership and more general about sustainable development, there is no truth. And there are a lot of books about leadership and a lot of reading and a lot of blah, blah. I almost say edu blah, blah. But there is no philosophy fully validated. And there are more truths to leaders. There are various leaders and all kinds of sorts and sizes. And please let me also remind you that those who claim that leadership can be defined or formulated or listed or written about, let us all realize we don't have a clue yet about the great universe we live in. And we don't have a clue yet about the very smallest things around us and that sort surround us. So science and all these deliberations, I wish to underline, they are relative. They are up to you. And as I just said, there are many, many books about leadership. And there are books with 3 and 5 and 7 steps and diagrams and models. None of these are validated. So question. Consider this out loud. Just first sharing some notions on leadership. What can it be? Is it the big leader from the past? Is it the supreme military leader who oversees and controls everything? Is it perhaps a natural leader we need? It's a tiger or a snake or a lion, depends on the culture. Perhaps we dream back and remember leaders from the past who might have been there for a single interest, transforming mindsets. Perhaps there were leaders with some mystifying presence that we all followed in a certain geographical area. And perhaps there are leaders that I will not further elaborate on now, but also this are, of course, leaders to many people, as is Mr. Putin from an ideology and comparatively energy-driven leadership. So there is a variety, and more recent we see leadership coming up as a cry from the heart with Greta Thunberg. And we nearly forgot there were great leaders with a heart filled with care. All these people lead us. And today we have many, many young people. It would be an option to say we all lead. Everybody's equal in leading. So your view and my view and our possible shared view on leadership, let us first understand that the view, the perception we have is of course influenced by the experience we have in our own culture, in our own nations, with leaders and with would-be leaders, perhaps fake leaders, bad leaders. And it depends on your own ego when you think about leadership. How do you observe life? How do you decide? Will you be led? Or are you a leader yourself? Do you accept control or not? And what about your own qualities? So all these factors and perceptions play an immense role. But let us try to look at the leaders we chose worldwide to lead us. We got these G5 and G7 and G20 COP should act. We might just as well start off there. I don't say it's perfect, but this is what we got. We are together, we meet in UNESCO and United Nations circles and debate around sustainable development. But it's not easy for those state leaders, of course. They have an immense staff and organization. There's a lot of talking and conferencing and program writing. So this leadership is perhaps pretty vague. And that's a bit concerning. For if we look back since the early 1970s, and at least for 20 years, there's little effectuation of true leadership. Mostly we don't see true transition strategy today. And I think that is because this institutionalized leadership we have today through United Nations, UNESCO, and so forth, continuously talks and proposes the empowerment of others, not of them. One always speaks in politics that leaders are there to empower people to change, but isn't the change perhaps also to be sought from the leader, him or herself? So, for example, look at the more recent, not 2030, but even 2050 targets to curb global emissions. That might be kicking the can down the street. So this system of leadership, I dare to question and dare to criticize, because we're losing time. And we might perceive a straight line up, but the system is more complex and infested by imperfections. So sustainable development is still fighting to get a place. And a system, the way we know it, a leader might perceive herself as wheeling the system, as gearing it up, controlling it, but that's not so. We don't have perfect systems. They slip, they may break, they're not perfect. And all of our systems, whether in the local society, regional, national, or supranational, are forgiven with imperfections, and with interests and power and money and scarcity and poverty and richdom. So it's not so perfect. So it might be quite logical that the formal bureaucracy we installed has great trouble, is truly challenged by effectuating leadership. Then today, many think that the Sustainable Development Goals will bring leadership. As I talked about last time, that might not be so. The Sustainable Development Goals, as I researched for many years now, are pretty open doors to many people. There is no strategy behind them. They are obvious, they are logical, they are colorful, they are useful, but they don't present as a guide way forward. And I propose that we need more of a guideway, more of a pointing direction. We need strategy derived from a mission and a shared vision. So if I approach leadership, it goes certainly not through people, planet, profit, which I only resume now. I talked about it earlier. It will just bring us further people talking to people about what other people should do or refrain from. Like Eisenhower said decades ago already, he said, if you encounter this problem of no progress and you're all mingled up, and actually there is a standstill, make the problem bigger. And I think that's very elusive. Not try to specify it, but just blow up the problem. Look at the whole world as it is. That's what we tried to do. Look at Mother Earth, at ecology, and all our well-being and all our welfare. So let's approach different. Let's start from the echo. Let's start from values. For perhaps then we can somehow create future-oriented leadership, building on values and observing the whole of the earth. It's very complex, perhaps, but it might also ease the brain and unleash energy. But perhaps it's not complex. So if we go back to leadership, presently we have the hierarchical positioning. Many of us are used to that, whether in universities or companies or cities, municipalities, nations. We use this, either are not democratic, but we use hierarchic concepts. Then realize that doing so, we implicitly trust that those at the top of the organization know best what to do, what is best for us. These people should be capable and have support. Question mark, organization and formally placing a leader at the top doesn't mean he or she is a leader for sustainable development. Many say it's not the way forward is not in organizational structures. Well, we should lead by example. Every day we should follow those who show us how sustainable life, what it would be about. But then question, does he or she knows where to go? Are these footsteps now left behind real footsteps? Can we stand in them? Are we capable to? And are they true? Is all that is what is presented to us now in terms of green business and wonderful examples of solar cell technology and electric cars, is that really something we need to follow? It should challenge our thinking continuously. And of course, we have many, many, many thought leaders by now. The whole LinkedIn network seems to be one big thought leadership these days. Everybody's a visionary if we read through that. But if you poke in that also most critically, how clear are these thoughts? Do they have range? Do they have reach? Do people accept them? We don't know. In our multi-mass media connected society, everybody can shout a lot of things and claim a lot of things. So also this might be questionable. Will all this thought leadership lead us to transition, bring us to action, to do something? For if we want to do something, a good leader or leadership at least needs authority, needs to be accepted. Otherwise, nothing will happen. Otherwise, we'll just end up in the blah blah. The position should be stable, which, for example, in the political system is a question mark. Democracy is wonderful, but if you choose a new leader every 2, 3, or 4 years, it's not a really stable line of progress, probably. It's at least a bit risky. And then change, of course, should be practiced. Now, very briefly, a small bit of social science. This is McDougall's model, grid group model. Perhaps, I guess most of you know it, but the brief introduction. We try to organize ourselves as groups, mostly, as I just said, in hierarchies. And hierarchies have a strong sense of group and a strong sense of grid, which means there are rules we have to obey. There are common tokens, there is a common culture. We do these things this way. We have agreements. But you can also have stronger groups without grid control, without too many regulations and rules. That would be the enclaves, the former villages where people stood in circles and listened more to each other. Didn't measure or punish each other for that much. Now, I forget for now about the isolates and the individualists, but let's be real, in a globalizing world where everybody is free to move, communicate, share opinions. That's wonderful, but we might go to a world of individuals. Low group, low grid. Everybody's doing what he or she thinks is best. Might be an option, but how do we lead that? And question mark, do we need to lead that? Is a world of supreme individualists, all very wise and acting bravely and soundly, perhaps a way forward? So people, just offering you some further perspective, not to make you unsure, but there is of course uncertainty. And let me remark in between, choosing a wrong model or an insufficient model or corrupt model of leadership is of course the worst thing to do. The way I observed industry, governmental bodies and bureaucracy, the world of research, and the world of education, all entangled, I found that the leaders in these organizations are so different. Not only the cultures and the organizations are different, the people are different. They build on various values. They highlight different things. For example, an entrepreneur in a business is more strict, commanding, more output oriented, has a high grid control on his organization. If you look at cities, municipalities, countries, it's of course slower. There's always this balance of interest, so which is of course very good, but it's a much slower reflective system. So the output is not as concrete, it's more wavering. If we look at the world of science and research and development, we know more and more that scientists in their thinking and action have a certain distance to real life. So also, can leadership then come from science and universities? Also questionable. If they are detached, it's a problem. If a university and scientific world says, well, we're actually not responsible, we're just thinking and advising, yeah, we cannot expect true leadership to come from there. And the world of education, we put in cement. Many of us think we have old-fashioned schools and incompetent teachers. I don't agree with that, but the educational system is not the world presently where people are looking for the leadership and transformation we seek. So perhaps the approach would be distributed leadership. Let us all lead in regions, or let us have a network of leaders. That might be a way forward in this strange and fascinating world. If we go that way, if we acknowledge more leaders, in my opinion, hypothesis, they need to be connected anyway. And so perhaps not in a pyramid, but they need connection. I will explain a little bit later. If we have distributed leaders, many leaders of all kinds and sorts and all over the world, they need to be authentic. So not driven by money or politics or other reasons than a joint sustainable development. Well, that's quite a challenge. They need to be tuned. They need to voice a certain message together. If bees are important to fertilize our plants, they should be important all over the world. Because we are becoming one, it is impossible anymore to make various very distributed, non-cohesive decisions. So that's quite a task. So I foresee that we might have to pick up this challenge of stepping from individualistic leadership and understanding towards collaborative, relational models. And that is much more easier said than done, of course. Because we still lack this vision. We still lack this major agenda, what to do. So if I think positive and constructive, and we see a distributed landscape of leadership. Of course, each leader, quote unquote, will have people around her, will elaborate and think and consider, will get people from the region and collect ideas, most obviously. So then sustainable leadership is characterized by dialogue, collaboration, participation, and community engagement. Wonderful words, of course. You heard them many times, I think, in the discourse of sustainable development. And then we can discuss the complexity and be together. But again, question mark. Do you see regions where this truly happens, where all voices are heard, where everybody's taken serious? Not too sure at the moment, because these regions, and we studied 154 regions all over the globe, have certain characteristics. And I put a picture, hope, next to this slide that explains it a bit. We all live on patches, or regions, or cities, or provinces appear to be patch landmarks with all kinds of colors. I'm not saying anything is good or bad or worse or better than the other, but it's a patch landscape. It's full of power and politics and other sorts of values. And it's very credulous to believe that the most prominent patches we found are supportive of distributed leadership and of sustainable development. The individual interest and the local interest appear to be extremely strong. So some patches even appeared holes. I just mentioned Centers for Environmental Education, various universities, some bee companies, some green companies appear to be very commercial companies. Some great political leaders appear to be corrupt. I don't want to sound negative. I believe in this social cohesion, but let's be careful before rushing towards it. For we live and should acknowledge the landscape is still patched. And the more programs we have, the more initiatives, for technology, for culture, for philosophy, for politics, the more patches we create, the more complex it will be to get it all together. So it will be a difficult task for this distributed leader in a region. She will need vision and derive a mission from that. And with vision, I mean a picture of the future. How might it be? Where do we want to go? What can I picture if I look way beyond 30, 40, 50 years? And if we got that together, if we opinionate and debate about that, we can go on a mission together, but only then. And if we are on the way, we need some road signs, we need strategy, we need a pathway, and we need an action program where all gets together, where things empower each other, are cohesive, are coherent. And I'm sorry to conclude that despite 30, 40 years of discussions in the sustainable development discourse, this strategy unfortunately, is still not there. There's a humble and jumble of activities, but it's not coherent yet. And we need speed, we need coherence, we need a way to point us forward. There is a lot of good and bad in such a strategy. It's not perfect, but it's a lane forward, and we can learn once we start moving. What we found is that the leaders trying to do this should be very authentic, as I said before, should be not vulnerable, easy influenced. Yet we found that 1/3 approximately of all leaders in schools, universities, cities, companies, etc., are very sensitive for influence. And not only for money or power, but for new ideas. So they follow a bright idea for 3 months, the next idea for 1 year, then the next week there's a new idea and priority. So this leader that we might envision needs to be a thoroughly critical thinker, down to the bone, rising thoughts, giving thought, be independent. She needs to be very empathetic, sensing what others want without being written or without listening to words. There needs to be a sense of understanding, building on authenticity and building on knowledge. Even more than 30% of the leaders we encountered and interviewed, there were more than 4,000, actually didn't have the knowledge required. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but if you talk about future defining themes like food and water and energy and care for the elderly and healthcare in general, this future leader, I think, should also be knowledgeable. It is not enough to coach and to guide and to have others solve the problem. No, leadership will require an internalization of knowledge. And then, even more complex, the community to the ability to communicate this and to engage people and to gain trust with people and to share values and to rebuild and rethink values. Then we might come to a learning space on these future defining themes and get people together and march forward in the direction we all choose. So what we saw as opportunity is that we indeed can gather in regions, we can build this multidisciplinary, local distributed leadership. But it can only be done if all of us continuously connect and elaborate on that, if we discuss this. So that all these circles of people with all these leaders are in continuous exchange. And I'm not talking about Twitter or Facebook, not about the blah, 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 but on content, on values, on knowledge, critical and constructive to each other. Only a learning world constituted as such, and that is my opinion, my hypothesis, which I warmly invite you to criticize, can bring us forward. So we need shared values to coordinate and align us. And learning and leading sustainable development might not be in the person eventually at all. We might find this leadership purely through learning. So learning all day long, communicating with each other, will bring 7 billion people together on one march towards the future, which will be different than our daily lives, than what we know. So we have to face the facts. And I would challenge you all, not wait for a leader, start moving and create this local to global learning space. And then especially while we're doing that and realizing we already lost 40, 50 years, we lost 2 generations. Imagine the youngsters in the 70s, 80s, 10 years, 14, 16 years old, would have been on this route of distributed leadership, of togetherness. Then today, the 40, 50 plus leading our nations and companies and universities would have been these leaders. It's not too late, but let us now really honor youth coming up. So not look at fields of 1,000 flowers and await one yellow to blossom. The message of this picture is in the smallest of animals to the left side, flying around the butterfly and spreading ideas and creating unity. That's the way forward. Final sheet to consider, our present day leadership is per definition temporary. Whether it's an industry or university or cities, it's temporary, it's situated. It is created in given context. It's often, still too often, single interest, and it's compromisable. Where we need to go to is long-lasting leadership that spans the globe, is transdisciplinary. People that only represent a common interest. Perhaps these leaders in this distributed system are living partly beyond, next to real life. I don't know, it's philosophy. Perhaps they need a certain grade of independence. I think my time is up, for I would like to welcome you all to the floor and consider these thoughts together. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jos. Okay, Dr. Hock, if you are ready, you may now share your screen.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Jos, for explaining about leadership in terms of principles and the many keywords that you mentioned in terms of values and in terms of examples of how leaders ought to position themselves. As a follow-up to you, I'll be speaking about sustainable leadership from the business perspective. And I will launch myself into a few slides, which I will explain in general about what sustainable leadership, from my view, is entail. I'll talk a little bit about developing green business leaders, developing green business models, encouraging sustainability innovation, and how to provide for organizational transformation, and pathways for achieving an ethos shift. Very briefly, I'll cover these areas. I'd like to say that in terms of developing green business leaders, we have to inculcate the idea of the ethos of eco-sentience. And at the heart of this effort to develop an ethos for green business leadership, this notion of eco-sentience is which business leaders need to possess or inculcate. So I go right to the center of the core. An evolution in the personal qualities and values of the business leader is required to that of a holistic one, going beyond mere profitability and returns to shareholders. The sensibility that all life on Earth are interrelated, and the deep extent that all of Earth's resources support life is the basis of eco-sentience. I need to clarify that sentience here means an awareness. You can have an awareness of self, but in this case, you have an awareness of the ecology, the Earth intertwined in terms of a relationship with the inhabitants. So eco-sentience in a business leader will naturally place him or her to make fundamental decisions in line with Earth centricity. That means your decision taking, your worldview is that of the Earth and a planet. And all this brings you in alignment with the interests of planetary sustainability. So that's my starting point. As green business leaders, we also need to look at green ethos versus the current ethos. And the current ethos or the current business ethos is kind of like opposite what this green ethos is. You know, there is a phrase in a lot of science fiction movies, we are earthlings. Now, when you think about it, we are earthlings in every sense of the word. We are born of this world, thriving within it, dying into it, each of us related to the other, and dependent on the fragile ecosystem that sustains every facet of our lives. Eco-sentient beings realize that their undifferentiated experience, yours and mine, within an interdependent planetary system or planetary ecosystem is what the world is all about. And the logical extension of this perspective is to see the unity in everything and in everyone. So we look forward, if you are talking about green business leaders, to the emergence of a new generation of leaders, business leaders especially, with a green ethos. But this is not going to happen until we recognize what are the root causes of the problems behind our current economic system, and then we address them. We must kind of like remember that we're all stuck in a current system. So we have to look at the green business leaders from the point of view of role models. Who are these role models that we can look at? As Jos has pointed out earlier, there are people, individuals who perhaps already have such values, and they can be identified if you look up for them. So we call these positive deviance. You know, you have a deviation from the normal. You can have deviation in the positive sense or the negative sense, but let's take a look at this from the positive sense. So if we can, at the human and individual level, identify and nurture leaders who come up with holistic perspectives of their lives, their family, and relationships that value balance and harmony with the environment in equitable proportions, then we can identify who these role models might be. With this sense, they have developed innovative models for sustainability and established groundbreaking practices for which are departures from the norm. However, as positive deviance can be held up as instances and best examples of how sustainability solutions can be provided and impactful initiatives can be taken. So this is a very practical approach. There are already people in our midst who are possessing such qualities, and actually we just have to look around us to see that they are available and around to play a role in our worldview. I would say that this green positive deviance can be identified. For one, they have green values emanating from the holistic eco-sentient worldview. And in their leadership, as in their readiness to be role models for others, and their readiness to share their ideas and experiences. And they practice what they preach, as shown by what they have done to demonstrate what they believe in. And they risk their credibility, their resources, and their position in a conventional society. Sad to say, green positive deviance may, and more the case than not, find rejection from the business community. I'll call this the business as usual community. For sorry, yeah. For the okay, for their values and their convictions, because it's not easy to live up to your own convictions, especially when all around you everyone is doing things in their own way, in a non-eco-sentient way. They value themselves, they value their companies, they value the existence of their profit motive and their wealth generating aspects more than what the ecology and environment or the society of the world is like. So when you have a green business model, which is led and created by green business leaders, the emphasis is on holistic growth and development. In a green ethos worldview, eco-centric businesses and their core values are the basis for their practice and is measured by holistic development and growth. As mentioned earlier in my previous talks, the business's system boundary is now expanded, reconfigured to include environment and society and to attribute a true return to all stakeholders by way of designing models that are earth and environmental centric. And we have to identify companies or businesses that have successfully adopted these new green business models that have fundamentally changed or disrupted the present system boundaries. This is not a theoretical exercise. There are actually companies or social enterprises or individuals like this out in the world. All we have to do is look out for them, recognize these values in them, and they can be nurtured as the future leaders, the future green business leaders. Such reconfiguration is not difficult to conceive of in the first place. It is even more of a challenge to manifest, of course. There may be few and far between, but identifying successful ones does open the path for others to follow. So we have to also look at encouraging sustainability innovation stemming from developing green business models. by encouraging and facilitating sustainable innovation, a process whereby commercial sustainability considerations, environmental, social, financial, are integrated into company systems from idea generation through to research, innovation and development and commercialization. Arthur D. Little in 2004 defined sustainability-driven innovation as the creation of a new market space, products and services or processes driven by social and environmental and sustainability issues. This applies to products, services, technologies, as well as new business and organization models. So you can imagine what new business leaders and new business models can undertake in terms of sustainable innovation. Now, if you are in charge of an existing organization and you need to transform into a green business with your leadership and a green business model, you need to look at how to provide for organizational transformation. And one of the steps is to develop systems thinking paradigms and processes for existing companies and business leaders are inclined to take their businesses into the sustainability space. This has to be a direction that they can look forward to. Business leaders, especially green business leaders, have to navigate their business community, which is not easy. They have to navigate their value chain ecosystem, all their suppliers and all their distributors and who their customers are, and of course the broader conventional ethos. And the organizational transformation efforts have to effectively engage with multiple stakeholders within this environment. And they, from there, institute a process of transformation towards new values and new behavior. So we can see that leadership is fundamental to successful transformation, and an experienced hand helps to favor the odds. Now, following all that, we need to look at achieving pathways or developing pathways to achieve an ethos shift. We have seen how we are trying to develop green business leaders, have a call to why towards eco-sentience, a new value system. And I call this an ethos shift, from the current ethos to the new ethos. So within the organization or corporation itself, all phases of transformation require constant analysis, understanding leadership and risk, the risk involved, and the continuous evolution and development of new capacities to move into this sustainability space. So with this approach, companies can be facilitated to move along the path to green values and earth centricity. As with all transformations, achieving an ethos shift from older values to new evolved ones, in fact, further assure more stable outcomes without regression back to the older default values. An ethos shift, as an ethos shift require, we hone in on the value systems anchored in a holistic worldview, as we focus of our efforts instead of just compliance in terms of practices. This also involved in changing customer mindsets to a more sustainable and holistic perspective. Now, this is my last and final slide. And I like to refer to one website called Shift Ethos. There's a quote there that says, understanding the ecology of commerce and our role in preserving the planet, as opposed to an unaccountable narrow focus on our personal advancement and the gains on Wall Street, which are the financial markets, is paramount to preserving the planet for future generations to inherit. Our current business model is not sustainable ecologically or economically. By the way, ethos shift or shift ethos is a movement advocating a deeper understanding of ourselves, our connection to the earth, better individual, better business, and better industrial practices that promote the sustainability of the Earth's life support systems, the protection of all species that we share the planet with. And with this, we can abandon or move away from the industry's pervasive destruction of the planet. So achieving such a shift is not easy, but this is the direction we have to go. And this is looking at what I would call the true north, or what true values have to be inculcated in green business leaders, or in other words, sustainability leadership. So with that, I thank you. And I will now stop and I'll pass on to Dr. Renuka for the next part. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I think my slides were not working on this side, and I sent the slides to Rihanna, but I hided this slide and it has come up. So I'm extremely sorry. So can you move the slides on slide 3, please? Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. So today I'm not working from my home, but I'm at my daughter's home. So I'm a bit of short of some resources. So I'm really sorry for that. But yes, I'm so delighted. I'm very much delighted to be here. And at the 4th session, I still see people motivation to enjoy this series, and that is so extraordinary. You know, we have been, I am so much grateful to Dr. Patricia, Dr. Francio, and Rihanna, and Dr. Alvin, and everyone at Baliuag University for sponsoring this session. And I'm very, very grateful to have my delivery team along with me, Jos and Hook. So I think we are trying to make a point here that what we need to do. And I think Dr. Patricia already mentioned in her welcome remarks that we need to be aware, how we can be aware, how we know what we want to do, how we can shape these futures together. And this episode, I think, perfectly suits well in delivering some of the learnings around this. And Josh mentioned togetherness, and that is so impressive, that is so attractive to me. Togetherness. And I think we have seen many words, synonyms of those around throughout this presentation: holistic, gatherness, collaboration, collective, and many of these words. They have made many, they have been spoken so many times, which highlights their significance. And Josh mentioned about all the leadership. Yes, who has also mentioned about leadership. But I'm questioning, are we ready? Do we have that deeper understanding of what we need to change, how we will do it, and so on? There are few things, yes, few examples were shared with you, but and Josh really touched on what leaders should be, and he also showed us a few leaders. And so I'm wondering what leaders should have as a quality, or what their perception should be. And I was also wondering, should only the government leaders be leaders, or should only anyone having some authority be leaders, like in a business world, or the way we see? So I start here. I know I have this slide. We have definitely encountered climate change and many other problems, social and economic also, and recent pandemic. So these all problems which show that we need to do something different. And so can you change the slide, please? And here, this is one of the, again, very critical situation shown by one model, where they have shown that how we are degrading. If you think that the total resources were of this whole circle, then the gray part is shown as harvested and became degraded, and the other is already degrading, and the green part will soon degrade. So you can see that the world is very fast degrading. And so we need to think about it. Please change to the second slide, please. And so the cities and these are urban areas are increasing, as we have already seen, due to the population and urbanization and sophisticated lifestyle. urban and city areas are increasing, but they are messy. We see waste generation, we see pollution, we see many other social problems, we also see health problems and so on. So our world has become messy. And so what we need to do, how we can overcome these all problems of production and transform the infrastructure of our urban going forward, because it is going to be like 95% of people will be staying in urbanization. I mean, whole area or whole world is going to be urbanized because everyone like that lifestyle. So what are we, how we are going to do that? So please, next slide, please. Of course, it is not easy. We know that, because our society or our systems, you can say, and when I'm mentioning systems, it is like food system, transport system, and health system, as well as the whole societal system. They are closed. And you can imagine yourself as a system also, because you are part of a system. And I think if you go back to our episode 2, you will definitely see what I mean by systems there. And so they are relatively closed, and we are underpinned by unsustainable values. And I will come to that, what we mean by values. And you must have heard this word again, values, several times today. And so what we want to do, and we also heard multiple uncertainties or deep understandings, and where we can bring this interdependence and so on. So I will follow up those things. So yeah, please change the slide. Thank you. And so what I mean by, as I said earlier, that I will go deeper into theories and practices about sustainability leadership. And what I mean here, like theories, what theories show that we initially started our capitalism, like we started doing more business and industrialization happened. And so we came from an economic perspective that we need to growth was our value. We valued growth that time. And after having some industrial revolution, we also found that there were some strong social perception that we all need to be happy, comfortable, better lifestyle, and so on. So we came from social framing was developed. And then due to these two framings, the complexity developed. And so there were organizational framing, that how we can develop capacities, how we can capabilities to deal with all this. And then there were alongside several regulations developed, and therefore they are called like political framing was also developed. So how to deal with these different framings, and what happens that each one believes in one framing, and depending on their needs and depending on their context, that someone like, how can you expect someone to share something if they are not making any living also? So which means that they have the priority of living, how he can earn for his living, he or she can earn for living. Whereas some other businessmen might have the priority of growth, that how can he or she grow his business, their business. So that is what I'm saying, that everyone is coming from the different perspective, for having different values from the different contexts. Change, please. And so here again, I think you have already heard several times words like holistic, systems thinking, and so on. And I have gone through many systems. There are many system models. And also just now, one was introduced by Hock, ethos, and other things. But however, mainly their theoretical pinning is in these 4 systems thinking, which is one is like technology and social, which means that, you know, whenever you are buying your products, whatever the products you are buying are in the context of the social needs of the customers. So customer want something very fast, customer wants something very low carbon, then that is happening in the products. Okay, and you get those products. So that is called a technological and social interaction. Complex adaptive systems are coming from the organizational, internal and external, and I will come to that. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to introduce here, and I have other slides to explain those things. But again, there is another two systems, such as coupled, I mean, human and environment. So people also think that we must match people and planet. And then this last one, broader conception of sustainable development, is in the context of like having all the context, all the dimensions together in a system. So next, please. So here, socio-technical system, which I already explained, which has several different requirements by the customers, and then the products are changed accordingly. It can be everything, starting from housing, transport, to small product like a hair dryer. Okay, so every product are transformed in that way. The market works like that. Okay, next, please. And here I would like to say, when Hook mentioned about innovation, I think innovation is so much important. It could be an incremental innovation, or it could be like complete innovation, absolute innovation. Okay, and so here how that can happen. What happens that our system here, I have simplified. Our system has several levels of having policies, and then having people at authority, or you can say the different markets, and which is called regimes. And then at niche level, it has individuals. So can we have go to next slide, please? So I think I have already introduced this slide before, but I would again like to say when the innovation happens. And that is very important, because at the niche level, at the bottom, when you see niche level, there are several innovations going on, but they do not get to the market at all. And how they can get to the market? At the top, there are policy influences which are having pressures on the market, that you do this, you do that. And so innovation can get into the market only if there is a window which allows its penetration. And what does it mean? That people should accept that, and then only any technology or practice can diffuse into that market and become a mainstream. So next, please. So here I bring an example of just building construction, because I come from construction background. I have brought here, when we do a retrofitting, there are several synergies, or you can say interrelations between different stakeholders, practices, and products. Okay, but when we want to move that system to a better system, then what happens? Move to the next slide. It has to grow. So here you can see the additional green bits which needs to be attached to that system. So system needs to penetrate into the other systems, or to integrate some parts of the other system. Okay, next, please. And when I spoke about the complex adaptive framework, we have what is happening, that we have three mechanisms working here. One is agents, and here for agents or role players. And I think when we heard about leadership of whom, leadership, and I ask you the question, leadership of whom? As I already mentioned, that they are either, do you think that only the leaders like Putin and Trump can be leaders? Or can only the people who are like mayors or others, like at a regional level, they are the authorities, only they can be leaders? Or you individual can be leaders? I think you are the leader of your own. You are the leader of your house. You are leader of your workplace. Then you should be taking in your leadership. And therefore, I would say it is not a leadership. It is just the role play. Those leaders have to play that role. You have to play your role. And you can play a leadership role in any workplace, any time, any context, any situation. And you must have seen during when you are in schooling or you're in college, you must have taken a leadership role somewhere. Think of that. And you think how brilliant you performed, and bring that leadership now within you. Grow that leadership. Always think of that. And I want you all to be a leader of your own. And that's what I want to say. You are the agents of the system, and you have to be playing your role there with responsibility. And anyone who plays a role with responsibility is a leader. Okay, next. Sorry, can you go back, please? Yeah, and then we also heard about that what to influence. You have to influence your performance. You do not have to count anyone else's performance. Just think of your performance. Yes, but it needs to be in the context within your organization or within your role play, within your system. And that will bring out the system outcome. So if a social person is taking leadership, he will perform well and he will bring out the social dimension of the system. If someone who is leader in environment will perform have a leadership role in will perform best in environment and will bring out environmental dimension. Likewise, someone who is a leader with economic mindset, he will perform well and he will bring out economic outcome. But all these outcomes should be within the context of your system, interrelated to each other, not and balanced. I also heard one word from Khoo, I think, that balanced. And also Jos mentioned balanced. We should have balanced dimensions within our system. Next, please. Any system, this is coming from my PhD, and any system when you think of has 5 I-ins, which is investment, information, initiative, innovation, and incentives. Without these 5 ins, no system can work or can be operationalized. Initially, it has to be this, and then it grows within these 5. So you think of yourself as a leader, where you want to invest, how you want to get the information, how you want to initiate your activities, how you want to be innovative in your activities, and how you want to incentivize others and yourself to do those activities. So these 5 ins are very, very important for anyone to change their life, change their transformation. They are the elements, these 5 ins. Next, please. So, and you have already heard about complexity, interrelation, there are multidimensional, everything has to be, integrated. You also heard about hierarchical model, vertical model, but here I bring an integrated model. And so whatever I just said, it is something very similar. I'm just making it a bit complex to make you understand that the systems are complex. You cannot have a simple answer. They are complex. And also, Jos mentioned, make the problem bigger. And here I would like to tell you, think of like there's a story that if there were a few blind people in a room with an elephant who never ever experienced elephant or never do not know what this elephant was, and they touched at different parts of the elephant's body, and each one thought something different other than elephant, depending on their own context, whatever they know before. And each one was like, no one got an answer that what it was. And that is something what it is with sustainability at the moment. However, if you draw out of yourself, out of that and make a bird view, take a bird view, then you will understand the whole complexity. So you need to have both. You need to have a grasp of that one part of which you know better, as well as a distant or air view of your system. And here I am saying each one, like at individual level, organizational level, or inter-organizational level, there are different, so in box A, we have these agents. In box E also we have agents. And then in box B, there are governing rules. And what I mean by governing rules is like the policy or your own framing, your own initiative. What is your role? Your responsibility towards the role. These all are called governing rules because they induce action on you. So if you think that I do not want to use today any transport, then that is your overall governing rule. Then what will happen? It will induce an action of walking because you do not want to use any transport today, which means that you have to walk. So that becomes your governing rule, and that will that has induced your action, which will be in like action, and that will result into performance, which will be in box C. So your governing rules will make your actions depending on your role, and then you perform. And that will impact on the system outcome. Yes, and also it was mentioned that there are several uncertainties in this. And definitely each action of your daily life or daily work role anywhere, you have uncertainties and you deal with them. So be comfortable to deal with them. Try to understand the complexity, and as you go on increasing your knowledge of complexity, you will try to diminish, you will certainly diminish your uncertainties. And that is what it is highlighted in D and H, where all these should go feedback into the system for the role player or the governing rule. So for example, when I said your policy today is for not to use transport, you walked, but you got tired and you had a pain in your legs, for example. Then you will feed back to your mind and say, oh, I thought like I must do something better than this. What I will do, I will cycle for now so that I am comfortable to reach that point without having strains on my legs. So you have alternatives. Or you might share a car with someone, which means that you are not using your own transport and you are not making an extra carbon emissions, and still you are having a comfortable ride. So there are alternatives. So this understanding your complexity will allow you to understand alternatives, and you can change those, you can choose those alternatives depending on your context and your governing rule. But your governing rule should be higher value. That should remain there. And you can change your actions and performance and outcome. Yes, next, please. Yes, and I think we have come across these values many, many times. So what we value. So now you look at it on your own self. Everyone has one expertise. It could be in chemistry, biology. Here I'm talking about disciplines, but it could be any social disciplines or natural sciences or anything. You might be expert in cooking, okay? All sort of those things. So that is comes at empirical level. So that is your basic expertise. But you also apply that in pragmatic level. So if it is cooking, you might apply to make a better meal in a sense of serving your guest, or if you know about chemistry and biology and all that, you will apply in agriculture, forestry, engineering, and so on. So that is called pragmatic level. You are working on that, yeah. And then depending on that, how you will design that thing. So if you are a cooking, you will think about how can you use less resources for cooking, less material for cooking, and make best dishes, and also less time maybe. So if you are thinking of those things, that means you are designing your meal. And that is what you need to do. You need to do design, you need to plan. You will also plan previously, like if you have to make a meal, you will plan from a week or so. And if it is a special meal, you might plan for 3 months, that where you will buy things and so on. So planning, and politics or economics or other things will also play a role in there. And these all things are at normative level. But above all, what is there? What is your value? And Hook has rightly touched on ethos, values, philosophy. And the highest value should be sustainability, where you can match all your perceptions, your guest perception, and your maybe market perception, your local context perception, and everything. So you need to match everything, and that is the highest value. Next, please. And what happens when you match all these disciplines? So for today, for example, here, we have about 80 people here. What are we doing? We are transforming ourselves, like each one has come from different perspective. But after an hour, we will all be at least some level of understanding, which would be very same on each of us. Oh, this is what we understood, right? So when you come get together with everyone, you need to transform and come to a new level of understanding, which is called transdisciplinarity. Next, please. I can go skip this one. Thank you. Next. 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 Yeah, this is just an example. You will get the slides and you can see this. Next, please. Yeah, these all are examples. Carry on with the slides. Yeah, next. Yeah. And thus my question is, how can we make our city more resilient? Or this was specifically for my previous presentation for city, but urbanization, or we can say our world. This was an example where we can ask that how I can contribute to the system by having this like effective leadership. And in a nutshell, now I think what would I like to say, that you have also seen that we should be strict, we should be focused, we should be commandable, and output oriented. And I think I gave you that example, that we need to focus on our high level values. We need to be strict on that. We are not changing that. And for example, just now we want to have a sustainable future, which could include climate change and many other social problems, from all the problems which we are representing through SDGs, right? And then we also heard about distributed leadership. And what I mean, that everyone is leader of your own role play. So own your role and own your leadership. And this can touch into your supply chain, maybe, which who has mentioned, and individual and collaboration. These two words were highly debated here in this series, in this session. And therefore, I would say, yes, each one is leader, but in the context of your own circle or your own society, in your own specific reality. And what I mean by that, you have to relate your leadership and your role play, that what will be your outcome. Will they be contributing to multidimensional sustainability of yourself, your family, your neighborhood, your community, and your world? Thank you. I will stop here. I think I will leave for all these slides to just go through it. They are just simple to see and read.
Thank you to the members of the delivery team, Dr. Jos Eussen, Mr. Khoo, Hock, and Dr. Renuka, Thakore, for your clear and comprehensive discussions. You surely have gained a lot of new insights about sustainability leadership, so let's give them our virtual claps. At this juncture, our virtual floor is now ready for our open forum. You may want to type in your questions or comments via our chat box, or you are enjoined to unmute yourself, open your video, and ask your questions. Once again, if you have any questions or comments, kindly type it using our chat box, or unmute yourself, open your video, and ask your questions. Okay. So just to recap, some of the takeaways from the presentation of Dr. Jos are the notion and perception of leadership, as well as critical reflection of leadership and the different conditions to effectuate leadership, and how we need a new generation of sustainability leaders. Okay? While Mr. Khoo tackled how we can develop green business leaders with emphasis on holistic growth and development. Okay. Lastly, Dr. Renuka touched on the need for transforming theoretical framing and distributed and contextualized leadership role. Okay. So our chat room is open for your questions. Okay, you may type in your questions, and I will read your questions. Okay, so while waiting for questions, so let me read some of the comments from our participants. Okay. So from Edgar Moreno, so thank you, Mr. Jos, for an enlightening, entertaining presentation and the right way to apply principle of leadership. Okay, we appreciate having this mysterious area clarified. Okay, our sincere thanks. Okay, from Tushar Siddharth Pradhan, so good presentation, ma'am. This is for Dr. Thakore. Complex adaptive systems needs to be more cohesive and should be multidisciplinary. Breaking of silos with more proactive collaboration, partnership are key. Thanks once again. Thank you, Tushar Siddharth Pradhan. And we have here a question coming from Anthony Baldica. So how can we integrate smart city tourism towards sustainability as a whole? Okay. Anyone from the delivery team?
Can we listen or write? Can you write down the question in the chat?
Dr. Renuka, the question is in our chat box. So once again, let me repeat the question coming from Anthony Baldica. So how can we integrate smart city tourism towards sustainability as a whole?
Tourism.
Yes, Dr. Renuka.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Tourism has been, probably the most sector which has been affected in pandemic, and therefore the recovery of tourism is very, very necessary. We all have to work into it, because tourism sector are in some countries, like which are seeds or others, where they are part of like 50% of their income. And each and every household has to depend on that income. And so it is very important, the recovery of tourism. And therefore, this is the very great opportunity to have a green or sustainable tourism back into the our system. So what we need to do, I was recently listening to WTO presentation on tourism, green tourism, and they have proposed that you need to bring in your own specialist, special experts of that tourism. I mean, not experts, sorry, your characteristic of the tourism. So for example, like Africa has a wildlife, and therefore they are promoting wild tourism. And so through that wild tourism, what they mean that they want to increase the wild conservation as well as protection, and as well as they grow their economy through that area. And so having the whole focus there, we need to have several, of course, regulations or amendments to the regulations, but also training, awareness into the, and I also spoke about 5 Ins, right? You need to invest, and investment only does not mean money. Investment into public resources on people. You have to invest your time, your resources, like a right resources. It is also with resources, I do not mean only money. Of course, money is needed, but it can include your human capital as well. And so, and the information should be spread out in a right manner and to reach right audience. And also, incentives must be given. Support system should be developed so that these, whoever are in the industry, can grow, can learn, and can be supported through that change. And this again, go back to our learning today, that individuals have to play a role. And because each one is a part of the system, and even if they make a little change, it is going to influence the whole system. Likewise, Colombia has now recently started biodiversity tourism. Then there are Maldives is leading on this. It is a president of green tourism this time for the world. And what they have done, they have an high level policy, which I'm talking about governing rules. They have a high level policy, which is saying that only they should have only one resort in one island, which means that all the locals have to engage with that. And all the locals can get an employment from there. Everything should be, and also they have self-sufficient islands, or you can say self-sufficient resort. no island have to go out or source anything from other island. They are self-sufficient. And so they have become very resilient in their own system. They can employ their local people, they offer local food, they have local energy and all sort of those things. And 50% of carbon emissions have reduced due to this policy. So you have to go out and see how can you be innovative. For individuals like an SME, they have a very small hotel or something, then they can apply how they can save energy, how they can save water, how can they save resource use while optimizing the services for their customers. Because I went to Santorini, which is one of the island in Greek, and the lady who owned the hotel, she herself came to me to pick up. So what does that mean? That is a customer service. Like you are so impressed when an owner comes to pick you up. You can be innovative in that way. You have to offer something to your customers so that they are loyal and they come back to you. So there are several examples, and this is at now a high-level agenda. So whoever are in tourism, go out and look for those information and how you can get. There are plenty of grants also coming out to how to change your perception or to help you start your own business in tourism. So you can become an accelerator, or you can, there are startup grants and many other things. So please go out in the world and look for the information and incentive and talk to some mentors who have already done some change, and you will be benefited with this, all these things. Thank you.
Can I follow up with a comment on tourism?
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Khoo.
I have several years experience in tourism. I used to be the deputy director of the ASEAN Tourism Information Center, which promoted ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, as a tourism destination, which included the Philippines. So I've been to Cebu, and I've been to Mindanao and all the places. Now, tourism is a very interesting industry. It's supposed to be the largest industry in the world, as per WTTC, the World Travel and Tourism Council. These are the leaders of the tourism industry. And it's interesting, during the COVID pandemic and the crisis that we had, the tourism industry suffered the most, because nobody could, even now, travelers are not allowed to come into various countries. Coming to Malaysia is not easy as a tourist, going to other countries are not easy. So every country has to depend on domestic tourism. And I can tell you that from a business perspective, all the people involved in the tourism trade, from airlines to hotels to travel agents to restaurants, are all suffering very badly. Their business almost plummeted from 100% to zero in almost overnight. And it lasted for 2 years. So what does the pandemic teach us about tourism and the effects of it and sustainability has been a big question. From the biggest industry in the world, as you rightly pointed out, Renuka, a lot of people are driven to experience tourism because of the fact that it is called the experience industry. Everybody wants to travel around the world to experience what it is like on every part of the world. It leads to very good positive outcomes. You are supposed to have more peace, global understanding, more interrelationships, and at the same time, you learn about each other's cultures and countries. But at the same time, it leads to a lot of consumption, leads to a lot of expenditure, which may not be sustainable. And this is the unsustainable part of tourism, where you have development and you have excess over the carrying capacity, as we call it. So we have to be careful about how we think about tourism as usual, conventional tourism, which is usually mass tourism. Hundreds of millions of people leaving countries every year to travel to other countries, using airlines that contribute to global emissions, and transportation, and so on and so forth. So how do you attain a sustainable model? This is a very good example because I have personal friends who are in the business, and this is where I like to relate to the topic of green leadership. So this person, who is the managing director of a travel company, of an inbound travel company, he developed this for over 30 years, but his first entry was into natural tourism. He was a nature guide into the forest. And so he has a very eco-sentient perspective of the world. So when he became a managing director of an inbound tour company, he developed tours for all the nature sites. And so there's this eco-sentience going on. His value system is to preserve nature, to be eco. So his value system became very unique in the tourism industry. He bought a hotel and he converted that hotel to be, you want to call it the greenest hotel in the country, adopting something like 240 different techniques to make the hotel green, from carbon footprint reduction to using sustainable material to rainwater harvesting to everything you can name of. And he freely gives his knowledge out to everybody or anybody who can listen to him. So this is what I call green leadership in action, green sustainable leadership. And we have this kind of people all over the world. I believe every country you have people like that. It's just that they haven't been discovered, orientated, and tapped into to share their experiences and group together in the way Jos pointed out, in terms of global networks, the people sharing the same values, as what you put it, Dr. Renuka, in the top hierarchy of the transformation. And we can use these examples as role models, because we have to look at transforming the tourism sector as a whole, from urban mass tourism, if possible, to what I call non-urban tourism, where you have things like agriculture, ecotourism, culinary, health, heritage tourism, all the non-urban things. Take you to the countryside where you have less chance to catch COVID and you have less people to interact with. You're just interacting with nature. So I think these value systems need to be encouraged and to be promoted. And this is a very good example of how in the case of a tourism industry, green leadership can be promoted. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dr. Renuka and Mr. Khoo, and also to Anthony for the question. Okay, so we also have here another question coming from Dr. Hasmin Tayao. So can you share some challenges as to how a sustainability program is prepared or developed?
In what regard can the question perhaps be enlightened a little bit? Sustainability program on a global scale, or in what discipline or field?
Okay, so Dr. Hasmin Tayao, is it in terms of a local scale or a global scale when it comes to how a sustainability program is prepared or developed? Dr. Jos, how about in terms of local setting? So can you cite some challenges?
Yeah, to begin with an answer being brief as possible, I showed this slide about the patch landscape of a region of regions where people live together. And the lesson we learned is that a regional, global, let's make it small, a local program, regional program for sustainable development, not needs to depend, I formulate very carefully, should not primarily depend on the organizations already in place. So if you seek to bring industry, consumerism, production, and for example, in the realm of tourism, together with knowledge, with government, seek out the people in the region if you want to construct a program. So don't build on the present institutions, which we found are very institutionalized, and you will have more people meeting in meeting rooms and congress halls, and not much will happen. So my first advice would be, if you want to stage a sustainability program, go out on the street, like Dr. Renuka also said, and bring together those people with authenticity. not those already, let me say, staged to organize sustainability programs. Because if you as a person today feel the need to launch a program, then actually the system in place is not doing it. So you need to circumvent a bit and trigger and challenge the present system by bringing people together who are not involved in the first place. That, in the cases we studied around the globe, was the best way forward. So invite the teacher, the baker, the barber, and get out and create a platform of authenticity that is truly multidisciplinary. That would be my first response and advice.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jos. Okay, so another question, Dr. Jos, addressed to you. So the question is from Tushar Siddharth Pradhan from India. So when you emphasize about leadership by learning, don't you think our educational system, along with the current business models, need to rethink sustainability from Earth's perspective? It's a rejuvenation, capability, and it needs more sensitized approach rather than relying on economic growth.
Yes, absolutely so. That was what I tried to enlighten with one of the sheets, where I drew these circles of ecology, well-being, and welfare nested into each other. I truly believe, wrote recently a thesis about it, that education, in strong and close alliance with industry and the world of work, that education should be based on sustainable development. So the major mistake we made thus far is that schools are tempted or even forced to do something about sustainable development as an additional project, as a week off, as a warm sweater day, a day of freedom, a day to put out the lights, etc., etc. To put that very, very clear and confronting. In my research, we found that is utter nonsense. Sustainable development can only be brought near if we allow schools, thus pupils and students, to learn about future defining themes continuously, every day. So turn around the curriculum and the disciplines, learn about food, water, care for the elderly, health, construction, even tourism, and then pack in all the curriculum elements again. We found that a sustainability-driven learning contains 17 times a country's curriculum. So we don't need to change the educational system. We should not focus on silly listings of ESD competences and the like, but just allow students to learn future relevance. They will tick off the curriculum, and they will need much more data and information to generate the knowledge they search for. They will need more than in the books now. They will challenge more questions than in present examinations. So they will need partners from the region. They will need industry. They will go to the bakery. They will go to the oil companies, and they will visit the town mayor, so to speak. So if we test that and then see that these young students in a broad age, 10, 12 years to 23, 25 years, if we then allow these students from the Philippines to reach out to Peru, from Peru to Canada, and Canada to South Africa, they can together continuously learn about future defining themes. So wrapping up this answer, yes, education can be based on sustainable development, and we should no longer wait and waste time with trying to correct an imperfect system which is now in place. It would be only repairing a machine that is not functioning anymore. We don't have the time to do that. We already lost 2 generations since the report of Rome, since the Club of Rome warned us in 71, 2 generations gone. This one we should educate most thoroughly, because they will have to take the decisions to come in 20 to 30 years. That's my plea for education and schooling.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jos, and to Tushar Siddharth Pradhan from India for the question. So we have here another question, Dr. Jos, coming from Dr. Patricia Lagunda. So let me read the question, the chat box. To Dr. Jos, you stated that over the last 20 years, there has been little effectuation of SD, no transition strategy. When can you say that societies have started to make headway towards transitioning to sustainability? Should there be a critical mass of ST initiatives before it can be considered affecting such change?
I didn't get the middle part of the question, but otherwise, please correct me or amend. Yes, there should be critical mass. The trick of the trade in sustainable development, I think, is not to await that any blessing comes from above. We, as crowded planet, got used to awaiting programs, new laws, new regulations. If those would have worked at least since 71, when we got the big warning, then the world would look much better today. So I think we should seek for the critical mass in our villages, in our cities, on the street. We can allow ourselves a quite ordinary approach to proceed. So please elaborate on the question you have, because I only understood, do we need mass? And my response is, yes, we need mass. And we need to combine, interrelate the regional masses in a global space. So we can share that not only values, not only talk, but decide on things. And perhaps very basic things. Protect the bees, to mention something very basic. All our animals, viruses today, we learn this lesson, live on the globe, just like we do. So we need this local to global continuous learning on facts and things that matter. That's the essence. And in a local setting, you need absolute mass. That's another reason, let me conclude with that, to take schools serious, still serious. Schools are still the converging points we have in our neighborhoods, in our towns, and our cities. They are old-fashioned, so we can kick them and we can beat them and we can damnify them. My proposition is not to do so. Schools and municipalities are still centers to meet, to converge in learning, but they should develop to open learning spaces to get this mass together and get it circulate.
Okay, so
Thank you, Josh. The middle part was something like, when can you say that societies have stated to make headway towards transitioning to sustainability?
Okay.
And probably you have addressed that question by your later part of your answer. So thank you.
Okay, just adding very briefly, sorry that it didn't catch that middle part, but you can literally measure it through physics. You can measure the air. You can see what happens in the sewage system, to put it very practical. If all of us decide to use less pesticides in our nature, that are just facts we can measure, we can be very certain about. So our behavior literally translates into our ecosystem that we can see happening the next week already. So it's very rewarding to act on a local scale and do something. So you can make it concrete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jos, and to Dr. Lagunda for the question. We have a comment coming from Clarissa Torresca, so let me read her comment. Okay, thanks for all the lectures on sustainable leadership. It really is a challenge to lead leaders, whether they be Gen Z, Gen Y, or Gen X. It is true that walking our talk can encourage everyone, especially those in our ever-growing circle of influence, to do whatever can be done to conserve Mother Earth, whatever profession we are in. Okay. Then, okay, via our chat box, question coming from Edgar Moreno. Okay. What are the challenges of sustainable smart cities in the world? Because during the seminar organized by the Duterte administration last 2 to 3 years ago with their project Build project under economic principle Dutertenomics, they have a proposed smart city project at Angeles, Pampanga. I don't know if you are familiar with the Build project under the Duterte administration, as well as the proposed smart city project at Angeles, Pampanga. Okay, anyone from the delivery team can answer this question?
I have not come across this specific project, but I know that there is a worldwide call for smart cities. And probably the challenges, what are the challenges of smart cities? I think the challenges are at several levels, especially the regulators who can bring in specific applicable regulations for those specific things which are needed. We are also sort of technologies, innovative technologies. We are sort of integration of the system. We are sort of data to integrate, say, for example, transport, how people move around, commute. We also do not know how people source their food, how people buy their things. And now, while we are going online, we don't know where we are buying from even, because within a second we can buy from China or from America, or from UK. So it is very difficult, and the data is the highest challenge, I would say, to analyze and see where change can occur or what change is needed. And therefore, it depends again, it goes on each and every one who is involved in that smart city project. You are the users of smart cities. And therefore, I think the longest period you will be using that system. And therefore, you need to think what you want as a smart city. And that is the biggest challenge, because you do not know what is future coming up, with what future technologies are coming up, what future government authorities are going to do. So there are several uncertainties as well. So I have just put a list of challenges, and probably the answer is that you start with your own self. And I will allow Khoo. I think Khoo is eager to tell something. So Khoo can add.
Not so much on the smart cities,
Okay.
but I will always refer that we need more intelligent design and more organic design that looks after the waste and the waste and the resource streams that flow into cities and out. So we have the technology now to operate it intelligently. We should use it.
Okay, thank you. While Khoo was saying, I have an example just to share. I did research on a city, or not a city, a town or a place, you can say, a settlement, which is designed under the concept of village urbanization design. And that is good enough to have an example for smart city, that what solutions can be there. So if you increase vocabulary in the sense of the design of that roads and transport system should be such that people can walk to places. They do not have any parking regulations, which means that there are very, very less cars, and you don't have to worry about your parking. Also, they have open space. Also, they have space which is concentrated with all the amenities, so that people don't have to travel too far. And there are some smart systems which allows you to know what energy you have used, what as a whole region, and what water you have used, how much it will cost, like what is the purity of air, and so on. And that all things, I think they are the components of smart city which we all need to diffuse in our own lifestyle and be adaptable to use those and help the systems as well, technological systems as well. I need to tell one thing, that my battery is running down, and some point I might go away. So just bear that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, so once again, thank you for all your questions and comments. Thank you also to the members of the delivery team for generously answering the questions of our participants. Let's give the members of the team our virtual applause. May I now request your cooperation in evaluating our webinar? Okay, kindly check the chat box for the evaluation link. May we ask for you to answer the evaluation now, or if not, you may answer it after the program. We all have learned a lot from this session today regarding the role of leadership in ensuring a sustainable future for all of us. So once again, thank you to those who have already answered our evaluation. To those who have not yet, you may do it after the program.
Just a final comment. Initially, I forgot to congratulate Baliuag University on their anniversary. So congratulations,
Yes.
well done. And we are looking forward to another 2 series and 2 sessions.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Renuka. So moving on to those who have questions on how you can get your electronic certificate. E-certificates will be directly emailed to the participants. So this is the certificate of participation that you will be receiving after this program. We are almost done with our 4th session of this webinar series. However, expect that the members of the delivery team will give us more in the next 2 sessions. On that note, we are all heading to the remaining webinar topics. We have finished with the Introduction to Sustainability held last November, Systems Thinking and Problem Analysis last December, the Meaning and Impact of the SDGs last January, and this session, Sustainability Leadership. We only have 2 left, which are Global Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility on March 18 and Leading Sustainable Transformation on April 15. We now have come at the end of the session. May I just remind everyone that we still have a short picture taking after this. To properly end this session, let me give the virtual floor to Dr. Flordeliza A. Castro, Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the School of Graduate Studies of Baliuag University, Philippines, for her closing remarks. Dr. Castro.
Thank you, Dr. Alvin. So this is our 4th lecture series, and as mentioned by our moderator this afternoon, we'll have 2 more next month and April. So again, in behalf of the university, our president, Dr. Lagunda, we'd like to express our appreciation to the delivery team of the Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series, the Global Sustainable Futures, the University College of Estate Management, Maastricht University in Netherlands, and the OPEDUCA project. I'm sure that everyone learned and were inspired from the comprehensive discussions on sustainable leadership this afternoon, or if you are in the other part of the world, this evening or this morning. I'd like to give emphasis on the important points that were discussed this afternoon. So Dr. Jos mentioned the importance of education in terms of how we can probably develop sustainable development within the society and how we would be able to create or probably develop students who will really be nurturing the environment. Dr. Khoo gave us several insights about business leaders, green business leaders, and models. How can we do sustainability innovation? How can we provide organizational transformation and pathways for achieving ethos shift? Our last speaker, Dr. Thakore, gave us a lot of inputs, challenges to urban cities. I think the word there is messy. No? She mentioned about the transforming theoretical frames or framing that we have to do. And the last thing that she said is about foundation of transdisciplinarity in our system. I am sure that we have been inspired and will forever be inspired in the next month and a few months more to come with the very comprehensive lectures that we are getting from the delivery team, no, led by Dr. Thakore. I am very sure that leadership is something that is essential in achieving the vision and mission of any organization. Any plan would forever be and would probably be accomplished if we have well and leaders who are going to really plan, implement, and achieve our plans and our goals and objectives. Repeatedly, Dr. Thakore and Dr. Jos and Dr. Khoo mentioned that we have to give equal importance to our stakeholders and our shareholders, and that if we are going to be together, as mentioned by Dr. Thakore, collaborate, innovate, be together, we will be able to play our roles in the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. In closing, allow me to inform everyone that we are now celebrating our 97th year as a university. So we are counting on 3 more years and we'll be able to celebrate our centennial year as a university. We are happy that our team this year is just like what Dr. Thakore was mentioning, the word resilient. I think she repeatedly mentioned the word resilient. Our team for our 97th founding anniversary is in Filipino, katatagan ngayon, bigkis ng kinabukasan. In English, resilient today, stronger tomorrow. Our team is a reflection of the inspiration that we have learned from the various seminars that we have attended on sustainable leadership. And we believe that we have to be flexible as an institution and that we have to promote synergy among us, our stakeholders, and our BU community for us to be able to have a sustainable future. In closing, I'd like to again invite everyone, 2 more months, and you'll be able to get your certificates of participation for this very wonderful lecture series on sustainable development. Maraming salamat, I should say it in Filipino, and happy 97th founding anniversary to Baliuag University. Good luck and good day, good evening, good morning to everyone. Thank you, Alvin.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. I am now requesting everyone to open their cameras and show us those beautiful smiles.
Okay, sis one, I'll be the photographer for today. So again, kindly open your cameras. Belated Valentine's Day, by the way. So let's spread the love. Let's love our planet. Okay. So again, may we ask you to open your cameras. I'm in frame 1, so just hold your smile because I don't know where what frame you are in my screen. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, smile. First frame. So allow me to just copy it in my and paste it in my file. Second, I'm now in the second frame. 1, 2, 3, smile. And third frame. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you again. Back to you, Sir Albert.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Bubbles. Thank you very much for this very productive day. There is a lot of sustainable development goals that we need to achieve, but together we can do more. Once again, my name is Alvin Alma Jose from Baliuag University, Philippines. Wishing you all a good morning, good afternoon, good night, and happy 97th founding anniversary. Thank you for attending and see you all this coming March 18, 2022.
Yeah. Ano nangyari sa'yo?